likened to a jail cell by those inside. Victoria's Premier says lockdowns are protection, not punishment. Residents tell SBS they're frustrated, but authorities say the caution is sensible.
Those towers has a large concentration of people in a small area. They are vertical cruise ships in a way.
A narrow win. Labor claims victory in Eden Monaro. The World Health Organization records the highest single-day coronavirus increase ever. Celebrations and protests. America marks Independence Day as coronavirus cases surge. The US president optimistic.
We've made a lot of progress. Our strategy is moving along well.
This is SBS World News with Janice Petersen.
Good evening. 3,000 residents have spent their first day in a hard lockdown in Melbourne, many unprepared and waiting for information. Premier Daniel Andrews and health authorities have today defended the sudden decision, comparing the high-rise towers to cruise ships, while promising to support those left inside. Nationally, 94 new virus cases were recorded. Those in New South Wales and Western Australia all returned overseas travellers in hotel quarantine. Not so for Victoria, which once again recorded the highest number.
It's Australia's hardest lockdown, and for those living in the 9 public housing towers, it's been likened to being stuck in a prison cell.
We're not like in an apartment where, some apartments have balconies. We're not in a home where you have a backyard or a front yard. We can't go anywhere. We just have a window and we can go into the corridor to get some air. Well, that's pretty much all you can do. There's no chance for, getting vitamin D and getting that much needed exercise and sunlight in.
Residents say there's been little communication since police last night told them they would not be allowed out of their homes.
They put us on lockdown, didn't give us any information, no notice, no warning. It just sort of feels like there hasn't been any consideration for us and how we're feeling in this situation.
The Premier says he's sympathetic to their plight, but drastic action was needed to protect them.
Staying in your unit, staying in your flat is absolutely essential. If we have a large group of people who've already got pre-existing and underlying health challenges infected with this virus, then people will die.
Daniel Andrews criticised for not calling on the Defence Force to help with the massive logistical task of confining the 3,000 residents in their flats.
The fact the Police Association are so concerned about the way the government's handled this public estate lockdown just tells you the government is making it up as they go along.
To assist lockdown residents, the government has announced there'll be no rent charges for the next fortnight. Those who can't work will receive a $1,500 subsidy with a $750 hardship payment for homes where there is no one employed. Multilingual drug, alcohol and mental health services will also be provided.
There are people with disabilities, there are people with chronic illnesses, there are people with mental health issues. We've got to make sure that people are able to access the support and the services that they need.
The Ethnic Communities Council of Victoria also concerned about the lockdown's impact. And while Victoria's COVID-19 cases are down on yesterday, public health officials aren't celebrating.
I don't think we've turned the corner yet. I think we can see other big days ahead of us, especially as we ramp up testing and focus on those areas that we know are at risk, including these towers.
This is a really tough period. People in public housing these days, even more so than when I grew up, tend to be doing it tough.
Other states and the Commonwealth coming to Victoria's aid.
And those towers has a large concentration of people in a small area. They are vertical cruise ships in a way, and so we have to take particular notice and particular attention.
Queensland sending 40 nurses south to help fight the virus clusters, the first already en route.
People are doing it tough down there, and we want to help as much as we can.
With a promise of more assistance to come.
And SBS reporter Gareth Boreham joins me now from Melbourne. Gareth, it sounds like the community has really pulled together there to support those in the towers.
Yes, they certainly have, Janice. There's been a steady stream of people arriving here at the estate throughout the day.
offering whatever help they can in the way of support and supplies. And as you know, the towers are home to many newly arrived migrants and refugees, and groups like the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre and Victorian Trades Hall Council have been catering and raising funds for the provision of culturally appropriate meals for them. We also saw this afternoon that the arrival of mass deliveries of food boxes, there have been some issues with the contents, it has to be said, with some complaints that they've contained wheat bix but no milk, and lots of jam but no bread. But hopefully that situation can be rectified. The Department of Human Services and Health here has also set up a 24-hour helpline for residents, and on the health front, the public health workers and nurses are beginning the massive task they face now of moving through every floor of these towers to test every resident for COVID-19. Janice?
Thanks so much. That's our reporter Gareth Borum joining us live from Melbourne. The World Health Organisation has reported the largest daily rise in COVID-19 cases on record. More than 212,000 cases were reported in 24 hours. The biggest spikes came from the US, Brazil and India, while Latin America has now overtaken Europe as the worst affected region.
Discontent spilling out on the streets of Bolivia. The nation is among Latin America's earliest to impose a strict lockdown. Now, frustrated protesters want their quarantine to end. Demonstrators resorting to desperate measures, holding 15 people hostage at a waste processing plant. Police responded with tear gas. Discontent too nearby, this family of a likely coronavirus victim blocking the street with his coffin after the body was not collected for 6 days. 4 hours of protesting later, funeral workers finally collected the body. Just one example of how the surge in virus-related deaths, now at more than 1,300, has left the system overwhelmed. Bolivia's 38,000 cases, though, still dwarfed by neighbouring Brazil. Socially distanced protesters taking to the streets of Sao Paulo today to show their anger at the way President Jair Bolsonaro has handled the pandemic. The president has repeatedly downplayed its seriousness and initially labelled it a little flu.
A lot of people are not staying at home and social distancing, not because they don't want to or because they don't know that it's necessary, but because they can't.
Brazil's huge wealth disparity and porous social safety net making the country an ideal virus breeding ground. Its case numbers now edging towards 1.6 million, only second to the US. In Mexico City, crowds still gathered, but shops are shut again. The country forced back into lockdown.
Desafortunadamente, muchos establecimientos no cumplieron con las reglas de sanidad y se desbordó la afluencia, provocando una concentración muy alta de personas, situación que debemos evitar.
Even stricter measures to discourage crowds are set to follow after the country leapfrogged France today, now recording the 5th highest death toll in the world. In Peru and Chile, the death tolls may be lower, but infections are surging. They are now 5th and 6th in the world for confirmed cases. Lynn Evelyn, SBS World News.
Prime Minister Scott Morrison will reshuffle the federal cabinet after Australia's longest-serving finance minister, Matthias Cormann, confirmed he's quitting politics at the end of the year. Let's go live now to Chief Political Correspondent Brett Mason at Parliament House in Canberra. Good evening, Brett. This decision did not come as a surprise, did it?
Not at all, Janice. There has been speculation for around a year now that Matthias Cormann, the West Australian senator, would not stand for re-election at the next election. So, after 13 years in the Red Chamber and 7 years as Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann was joined by his family in Perth today, revealing that he has spoken to Scott Morrison and the Prime Minister has agreed to his request to stand aside as Senate leader in December.
I've given this job my everything. I mean, I've left nothing on the field. 6 months of hard work ahead of us. There is an economic statement on the 23rd of July. There's a budget on the 6th of October. There's a half-yearly budget update in December. That will have my 100% focus over the next 6 months.
His departure will trigger what government sources tell me will be a minor front bench reshuffle. There is also speculation about a second minister, Immigration Minister David Coleman, has been on extended leave for several months, and there is speculation that he too might choose to stand aside, paving the way for a by-election. That comes as Labor claims an against-the-odds victory in Eden-Monaro this weekend, despite 20% of the votes there yet to be counted.
With no clear victor, it was a long and anxious wait for Labor.
We knew this election was going to be close, and as of tonight, it's still too close to call.
And Liberal supporters in Eden-Monaro.
We don't have a result, and it would be really nice to say that we did tonight, but we don't.
The final choice unclear from votes cast yesterday. The final result determined by close to half the electorate who voted early.
I would much rather be Christy McBain than one of her opponents right now.
The cautious optimism overnight today turned into a claim of victory by the narrowest of margins.
I'm very pleased and honoured to be the next member for Eden-Monaro.
Labor has a narrow lead in the two-candidate preferred vote with a margin under 1%. Labor's primary vote falling to 36%, the Liberals sitting on 38%, while the Nationals dropped to 6.5%. In a campaign hindered by coalition infighting, the Nationals candidate Trevor Hicks accepted his fate.
I just wish I'm going to be there for you in the next few years.
Christy McBain came to national prominence as a local mayor during the bushfire that ravaged parts of the electorate.
When the cameras go away and the spotlight fades, my resolve will not. Regardless of the outcome of this election, I will continue to stand up for these regions that I know and love. I'll continue to stand up for people affected by bushfires. I'll continue to stand up for farmers.
Having campaigned heavily in this electorate, this local contest was also seen as a national test for Anthony Albanese. Some of his colleagues say his past shoring up his leadership to the next election.
Well, given the talk is just amongst the people here and no one in my caucus room, I don't see it as an issue and never did.
It's a bit of an ugly win for us, I can see, but it's a win just the same.
While not conceding, the coalition is interpreting the result differently.
A devastating result for Anthony Albanese and the Labor Party, a 3% swing against them. Albanese practically moved to the electorate.
The opposition and its leader celebrating a victory that was far from assured.
3 cheers for Kirsty. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hip hip.
Pablo Vinales, SBS World News.
When Labor claimed victory this afternoon, the margin was around 1,000 votes. That has narrowed dramatically, now around 730 votes between the Liberal and Labor candidate. If Anthony Albanese does secure victory later this evening, realistically, both he and Scott Morrison have had a win this weekend. Anthony Albanese has not bucked a 100-year trend relating to by-elections and has managed to hold on to a marginal seat despite a popular MP retiring, a national crisis and a very popular Prime Minister. For Scott Morrison, there were no baseball bats. The average swing away from government at by-elections is around 3.8%. This time around, the Liberal candidate actually secured a 1% swing to the party. So despite all of the hoopla and theatrics over the last 2 months, the reality is this really is a status quo result. On Friday, Eden Monaro was a marginal Labor seat. Tomorrow, it looks set to remain a marginal Labor seat. Janice?
Thanks so much for that detailed update. Brett Mason reporting live from Canberra. 3 men have been killed in a boating accident in waters off Sydney's southeast. Rescue crews pulled the trio from the water after their vessel capsized. All were treated by paramedics and doctors at the scene, but couldn't be saved.
3 people went out on a nice day in a boat and they haven't come back to their loved ones. So it's a tragedy. It's hard on the paramedics that have a technical and a professional job to do.
Search operations are ongoing, but it's not believed anyone else was on board. An investigation is underway into a helicopter crash that killed 2 people, one of them a young girl, and left 2 more in a critical condition. The aircraft went down in a northern suburb of Broome. The pilot is among the fatalities. A woman in her 20s and a 12-year-old have been flown to Perth for medical treatment. The United States has marked Independence Day amid skyrocketing cases of coronavirus. Infections are trending upward in 39 states and deaths are rising in 14. But as President Donald Trump hosted national celebrations, he said his administration's strategy is moving along well.
President Trump hosting a 4th of July celebration at the White House.
Wow. You having a good time?
Much of the country is not.
We can't breathe!
By day, hundreds flocking to Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, renamed after the death in police custody of George Floyd.
I mean, I don't really see much to celebrate in America right now.
Dusk bringing confrontation on the mall. Trump supporters giving voice to their aspiration. Fireworks overhead and for the 2nd day in a row in the president's rhetoric.
We are now in the process of defeating the radical left, the Marxists, the anarchists, the agitators, the looters, and people who in many instances have absolutely no clue what they are doing.
What authorities in South Florida are doing on this summer holiday weekend is closing beaches in response to surging cases of coronavirus.
Miami-Dade County has closed their beaches. Palm Beach is closing theirs.
Florida setting another record for new cases in one day, more than 11,000. Some state beaches remain open.
I believe in our immune systems and the natural way that the human body works.
Texas also reporting a record more than 8,000 cases in 24 hours. Austin's mayor not ruling out a second shutdown.
Don't want to do it, but it's certainly an arrow in the quiver at this point.
President Trump tweeting, cases, cases, cases. If we didn't test so much and so successfully, we would have very few cases. But hospitalizations are up in 27 states. In Arizona, doctors warning of unprecedented demand for hospital beds.
We will get to a point where we have to start, looking at those god-awful rules about who not to put into the ICU and such.
The president insisting,
we've made a lot of progress. Our strategy is moving along well.
But as fireworks lit up the national capital, police, Trump supporters and Black Lives Matter protesters massing in its streets, the United States ending this Independence Day with nearly 130,000 American lives lost to coronavirus. Prulawan, SBS World News.
Coming up, a sombre protest. Thousands call for justice during Black Lives Matter rallies. A tale of 2 nights, celebrations and crowds as England marks an easing of coronavirus restrictions. And no monkeying around. The drastic measures being used to stop dangerous monkeys taking over Thai cities.
Tonight at 7:30, those pharaohs sure knew how to build firewalls. Unlock some Egyptian secrets in decoding the Great Pyramids. Then at 8:30, Joanna Lumley, The Quest for Noah's Ark, followed by grand tours of Scotland's locks. For 1 hour, you'll forget all about COVID-19. On a very special insight,
How are you going?
strangers who became neighbours
I probably wasn't that friendly.
If Kathy shakes her head anymore, I think she might sprain something.
and developed everlasting bonds.
Sorry.
It's okay. Inside, Tuesday 8:30 on SBS and on demand. And just wait until you meet Malcolm.
I give them a few free vegetables and we have a bit of a yak.
It's back, the ultimate cheesy garlic bread sub. Make your favourite sub inside hot, cheesy garlic bread. Give in to the ultimate cheesy garlic bread sub. Give in to fresh, give in to Subway.
If you've been injured at work, on the road or in a public place, your normal life can suddenly stop. Check if you have a claim for compensation online in minutes so you can start again. With Slater and Gordon, tomorrow starts today.
What's for dinner? What's for dinner? What's for dinner?
What could be easier than over 80 Coles quick and simple dinner ideas?
Smells so good.
All made with 5 ingredients or less and ready in 30 minutes or less.
That really looks yummy.
There's a meal for everyone.
This is good. Oh, it's fabulous.
Like our Cheats chickpea korma curry, just $4 per serve. Discover all the recipes at coles.com.au. What's for dinner?
I love it.
Good things, great value at Coles.
If you're thinking of cancelling with another car insurer, or you're an existing NRMA insurance customer, you can now get third-party fire and theft cover for just $10 a month.
After a huge week of activism, what comes next?
People are marching because they've seen the images.
You need to come together.
For the child who is working for nothing, it's slavery.
And you invented it. You, the white people, invented it.
This is our generation. It's a new generation.
Everybody's fight was worth it.
She wasn't there because she'd done anything wrong.
Wednesday, 8:30. The fate of two families hangs on one decision.
We don't understand why he can't stay.
We hope that we are not illegal in this country.
Who gets to stay in Australia? Continues Wednesday, 8:30 on SBS and on demand.
Thousands have taken to the streets of Paris to take part in a politically charged Pride March. The city's official Pride Parade was postponed to November because of the coronavirus, so organisers staged the Lower Quay March in support of the global Black Lives Matter movement. Peaceful protesters marched through the French capital bearing slogans demanding racial equality and an end to police brutality. One of Spain's most famous landmarks has welcomed visitors for the first time since its coronavirus shutdown in March. Barcelona's Sagrada Familia Basilica will allow access only to those who helped fight the virus in the city, including healthcare workers and police officers. The next phase will see Barcelona residents permitted into the famously unfinished building designed by Spanish architect Antonio Gaudí. Tourists aren't yet allowed to return. Well, it's a slice of Australian history found in the supermarket. So how did this World War II era diary finally find its way home? We'll show you the journey later in the program. There have been long queues and big crowds in England as pubs, restaurants and hairdressers reopened following a major relaxation of lockdown rules. It's the first time in over 3 months that businesses were able to open their doors, but there's no doubt the atmosphere is different as social distancing rules pose new challenges.
The streets of London, quiet for so long, now reverberating with the sounds of voices again. One of England's favourite pastimes is roaring back to life with pints at the pub.
As long as everyone's keeping their distance, we're going to have a few drinks and just enjoy it.
Super Saturday, as the English media called it, was desperately needed by a struggling hospitality industry. It's estimated only half of pubs actually elected to open, many waiting for restrictions to ease even further. Capacity inside a pub is currently capped. Patrons must be seated and live music will have to wait. But outside, as the night wore on, the social distancing wore off, something critics have warned could trigger a spike in infections.
They're all around each other again, so it's a little bit harder, and obviously when they're consuming a lot of alcohol as well.
It's not just a drink people were desperate for. Lines snaked out the door of hair salons too.
Couldn't wait, it was getting frustrating that I couldn't get my hair cut.
With visors on and social distancing in place, business owners seemed determined to make it work.
We've adjusted our system, we've had a small adjustment to our prices to make it sustainable.
As of next week, people can show off their new do with a day at the museum. The National Art Gallery will welcome back the public after 100 days closed, the longest the building's been shut in its entire history.
It's unprecedented that galleries have been shut for so long. In fact, even during the Second World War, we weren't shut.
Implacable in their poise, the masterpieces are unchanged by the historic pandemic, but the experience viewing them will be different. For those hoping to walk down the aisle, that's been given the tick of approval too. These delighted lovers finally tying the knot after months of waiting.
I will.
It didn't seem to matter only 30 guests were allowed to watch an age-old tradition survive even the most non-traditional of circumstances. Amelia Dunn, SBS World News.
Well, across Australia, job losses caused by the coronavirus are continuing to spike. One of the regions that suffered the largest cuts is on the New South Wales North Coast, which saw more than 11% of jobs go, to put unemployment in that region at almost 6%. Youth unemployment remains of particular concern despite a dramatic improvement before the pandemic struck. SBS reporter Omar Dehen travelled to Coffs Harbour to see how businesses are faring as they gradually get back on their feet.
Plating back up after a sudden shutdown forced bosses to slash scores of jobs.
It was an awful thing. It's not something that I ever want to have to do again.
Harry Barry operates half a dozen pubs in and around Coffs Harbour. When COVID hit, fewer than half of his 200 staff qualified for JobKeeper. The rest were let go. His businesses are still running at reduced capacity.
It's probably a really good time to be coming out of hibernation because we're not really feeling the pinch as much as we would if it happened in, say, if this was all happening in January, we would have been in real trouble.
Almost 3/4 of businesses in the region took up JobKeeper, but that didn't stop more than 1 in 10 people losing their jobs altogether during lockdown.
I think we're starting to see that real sense of community and people understanding that if you don't support local business, then doors do shut and people do lose jobs.
But amid the struggle, there are pockets of growth.
Right, so probably 2 of these can go in there.
Raw Food Hub connects produce from farmers directly to local homes. It started the year with 4 employees, now has 12, and expects to have 24 by year's end. The beginning of much bigger ambitions.
To make this successful, it's about sharing the benefit across the whole industry. How can we bring everyone up? You know, from the farmers to the landholders to the customers.
Do that up the back there.
Also just getting started, Year 10 student Zane Morrison. He's doing work experience at his dad's auto repair shop and works part-time in retail.
Basically, it's just a big benefit on your whole life, really. It's just a huge head start.
It's part of a push from local schools to bolster youth employment. Such initiatives helped halve the number of young locals out of work from around 24% last year. Progress that was halted by the pandemic.
Obviously, due to COVID, it's made a bit of a struggle to work and get my required hours up.
I think the area where we get most young people employed at the moment is retail and hospitality, and they're 2 areas that have sort of been hard hit.
While confidence is returning to businesses along the Coffs Coast, there is a sense of uncertainty, like across much of the country, about what will happen when temporary government subsidies come to an end.
I think people are spending money quite happily at the moment, but I don't know what's going to happen in September when the banks turn back on and, you know, when the JobKeeper gets turned off.
I guess we're just encouraging businesses at the moment not to live beyond their means now.
In Coffs Harbour, Omar Dehen, SBS World News.
And tomorrow night we'll look in more detail at how the tourism sector is recovering in the region. Around 2,000 protesters have turned out in Sydney for a Black Lives Matter protest, urging justice for more than 400 Indigenous deaths in custody. Today's demonstration was not authorised by police. Officers, including the riot squad, kept a close watch over the crowd as organisers vowed to continue their demonstrations in the coming weeks. And a warning for our Indigenous viewers, this story contains images of people who have died.
Silence falls over the thousands present in this park on Gadigal land, a traditional smoking ceremony. Every person in this circle a family member of someone who has died in custody. 437 Indigenous deaths have been counted in 29 years, not one conviction ever recorded.
We went through the lawful process, we've been through the coronial inquiry, you know, we sat down and we listened to that process and we received no justice from that process. So this is our process to demand justice.
Story after story, relatives of those who've died under the watch of a prison guard or police officer in Australia sharing their tales of loss.
You sent him home to me in a plastic bag, black bag.
45 minutes before the ambulance could get to my boy.
A sombre afternoon with moments of palpable anger and frustration.
For my brother and for every other family that got killed in police custody. They want us to stop protesting because protests work.
The crowd surrounded by a strong police presence, which included riot officers and mounted police. Most of the protesters wearing masks and conscious to maintain social distancing. Hand sanitiser also offered by the organisers. One man was escorted away by police after they received reports he was antagonising demonstrators.
Organisers say this won't be the end of their fight. They are vowing to keep up these demonstrations in the weeks to come.
This protest was not authorised by police, but as the crowd marched to Hyde Park, signs of cooperation. A largely peaceful day, but not without incident. Scuffles breaking out in Hyde Park after it's alleged a water bottle was thrown at police. One man reportedly arrested. In Newcastle, hundreds also turning out as part of a weekend of demonstrations across the country.
Whose lives matter?
A modern cry for a centuries-old struggle, which began after British boats arrived on the place we now all call home. Virginia Langerberg, SBS World News.
Well, a trip to the shops will usually deliver some of life's more mundane items, but not so for a family from the New South Wales city of Dubbo. In a strange twist of fate, a long-lost World War II diary was found on a supermarket floor and handed to police. It's now been reunited with the late author's daughter.
It would have been her mother's 98th birthday when Rosie Gibson heard a knock at her door.
I've got the absolute pleasure today of delivering a very special package.
New South Wales Police had found Margot Cooper's 1942 diary and were finally bringing it home.
I'm very nervous. I felt like I should touch it with special gloves on.
It was discovered on the floor of a supermarket north of Sydney and handed into police late May. For months, Officer Carissa Parker scoured the country, searching for living relatives.
And then I took a bit of an interest in it and just started searching on Ancestry to try and find the owner, maybe some history of being in the forces or married.
It was like she'd won the lottery when she found me because she was just so excited. And she said that was her last desperate hope.
The Second World War was underway when a 21-year-old Miss Cooper joined a wave of women in the Auxiliary Air Force.
No glamour girls these, but fresh, alert young Australians doing a real war job and doing it mighty well.
This was the era of Rosie the Riveter. Men were sent abroad and for the first time, a woman's place was not just in the home. As Margot found her feet at Temora Aviation Base in southwest New South Wales, she found her voice too. committed to paper in poems, letters and descriptions like this. The days endure, but the nights are clear and full of stars. This place has changed my outlook forever.
The fun, the trouble and the laughter and the tears will haunt me like ghosts through the coming years.
There are news stories and ones the Gibsons have shared since childhood. Margot Cooper died in 2011. 9 years later, it's as if a part of her is with her family again. For now, taking in what was lost and now is found.
We'll meet again.
Camille Bianchi, SBS World News.
Thailand authorities have begun sterilising wild monkeys after thousands of overweight, sex-crazed animals began taking over the streets. Restrictions imposed by the coronavirus pandemic have given the monkeys in Lopburi new freedoms and challenges to the city's human residents.
The dive-bombing monkeys of Lopburi launched their bloodless coup d'etat during lockdown. Tactically, it was brilliant. No foreign tourists in sight, local humans caged indoors. 3 months on, and the Lopburi takeover is almost complete. The invasion began a week or so into lockdown, when rival monkey gangs clashed in the city centre. The inner city gang took on and trashed the Prang Samyot Temple gang.
ก็เห็นมันลุมตีกันลุมกัดกันน่ะหนีกันไปหนีกันมาทีแรกเราเห็นแล้วก็ตกใจแต่มาตอนหลังเราก็มันก็สนุก มันสนุกว่าจะเรียก1169ให้มาช่วยดูหน่อย มาช่วยแยกกันหน่อยนะก็ยังไม่ทันสักพักใหญ่ๆมันก็เลิกกันไปเองไอ้ฝ่ายทางโน้นฝ่ายทางนี้นะไอ้ฝ่ายทางโน้นทางปางสามยอดเนี่ยเขาเรียกฝ่ายทางปางสามยอดแพ้หนีกลับไป
Since then, no further gang warfare. Lopburi liberated. Thailand's monkey capital, where humans are second-class citizens. Macaques hitch free rides on cars and expect to be fed. Mrs. Pachari Yinyom runs a soup shop. It's fun, she says. Sometimes they raid my shop and steal food and I have to shoo them away. There are too many of them now, though, she says. Long ago, the Temple Gang took over these 11th century ruins. Ever since, they've been preening on Kipling-esque temple towers, leaping between rooftops, picnicking in the park. A derelict cinema, grand palace of the Lopburi Monkey Kingdom. But during human lockdown, with no Western tourists to toss them bananas, hungry monkeys who haven't a clue how to hunt turned to their Thai neighbours. Some fed them fruit, but others arrived with Epicurean wonders that Lopburi monkeys took to like crack. No! It's strawberry yoghurt. What are you drinking strawberry yoghurt for? The syrupy treats has made the macaques more aggressive and it's triggered an obesity epidemic. But the sugar buzz lifestyle, combined with the long, hot summer days, has also had an unforeseen side effect.
But this turbocharged junk food diet of sweets and cakes and fizzy drinks and yogurt, it ain't good for monkeys. And during lockdown, it's proved to be a sort of monkey Viagra. They've got up to all sorts of monkey business.
At that point, Julian, my cameraman, was attacked. Anyway, there's been a baby boom, and fearing total takeover, the Wildlife Department has rushed to forcibly stem the population explosion, which has seen numbers double since 2018. 500 monkeys have been sterilised, boys and girls.
เรื่องของประชากรลิงที่เพิ่มจำนวนมากขึ้นนะคะเนื่องจากว่าเรื่องของลิงในจังหวัดลพบุรีเนี่ยเป็นลิงที่อาศัยอยู่ในคือทับซ้อนเลยกับพื้นที่ชุมชนเป็นลิงในเมืองเลยเป็นลิงในเมืองแบบ 100% เรื่องการเจริญเติบโตจากอาหารที่ได้มาเนี่ยมันทำให้เขาเนี่ยสมบูรณ์พันธุ์เร็วค่ะแล้วก็ทำให้การใช้ชีวิตของเขาเนี่ยก็แค่กินนอนแล้วก็สืบพันธุ์
It's not a bad life, though, for the oversexed, overfed, chunky monkeys of old Lopburi. In the shadow of another ancient temple, mums take their kids to the pool, where they dive bomb and dangle off their dad's tails, oblivious to the world's tribulations.
What a story. Well, for much of the coronavirus pandemic, we've been told there are two main ways to contract COVID-19. That is, breathing it in from your immediate vicinity or touching a contaminated surface. But now more than 200 scientists are challenging that view. They argue there's growing evidence that a third pathway also plays a significant role in the contagion.
We've all been told covering our coughs and sneezes, avoiding touching surfaces and washing our hands can help stop the coronavirus. But what if its transmission has been aided by another means being ignored? Airborne particles called aerosols.
Those which are smallest stay in the air and may stay for sufficiently long periods of time that they could be inhaled by others and cause infection.
Dr. Moravska is one of 239 scientists from 32 countries who've signed an open letter to the WHO calling on it to include measures to counter the aerosol risk in their recommendations.
This would protect people, save lives, protect against COVID.
Current WHO guidelines focus on the virus spreading through droplets produced when we cough or sneeze, typically over about 2 metres. But the much smaller aerosols are also produced when we speak and breathe. This modelling by Finland's Aalto University demonstrates how coronavirus could spread via aerosols in a supermarket when an infected person coughs. The researchers say it takes several minutes for the cloud to spread and disperse.
They're really tiny, they're really invisible, they're buoyant. They don't fall to the ground.
First and the most important control measure is to make sure that ventilation is sufficiently high.
As well as calls for more stringent policies on face masks. But the WHO argues the experiments run by Dr. Moravska and her group were based on lab experiments rather than evidence from the field. One of the UN body's top experts, Dr. Benedetta Allegranzi, told the LA Times the WHO has not judged the existing evidence sufficiently convincing to consider airborne transmission as having an important role in COVID-19 spread.
To help stop the spread of viruses.
In Australia, the routine use of face masks is currently not recommended. The Health Department says this will remain the case while the rate of community transmission for COVID-19 remains low. Darren Mara, SBS World News.
As coronavirus restrictions continue to ease across much of the nation, there are growing concerns the effects of the pandemic will lead to more vulnerable children as households experience serious financial hardship. SBS News can reveal a new online campaign has been launched to encourage everyone to do their bit to keep children safe.
Abir Shana has been a foster carer for more than a decade, drawn to the role by the need for more Muslim carers.
They were encouraging or asking for a lot of Muslim carers to become carers so they can help these children through to live in their cultures.
She's cared for more than 10 children with stays ranging from 4 weeks to 5 years.
They live with a good self-esteem, a high achievement in schools, feeling good about themselves, feeling that life is safe, feeling loved and cared and feeling wanted.
Abir is looking after a 1-year-old girl who was taken from her family during the pandemic because of domestic violence and drug abuse, a situation it's feared will only repeat as the effects of COVID-19 are felt.
Alcohol sales went up by a third, online gambling increased, so these houses were just pressure cookers.
The Early Intervention and Prevention Service says lockdowns have made vulnerable children less visible, given the majority of reports are normally made by school teachers.
FAMS became really worried that children who were already experiencing vulnerability were getting lost to the system, that they were just invisible in communities.
That fear has led to a joint campaign to educate parents, neighbours and communities to keep an eye on vulnerable kids and families and encourage people to seek help.
Join the village and keep kids safe.
Adopt Change says even before COVID-19 there was a shortfall of safe homes for the 45,000 children in care across Australia.
We expect, based on trends, that we will see that increase.
And as the number of those children in need of care rise, so too the need for more carers, with people encouraged to open their homes as coronavirus restrictions are eased.
They are just everyday people who have place in their home and in their heart and a capacity to care for a child who just needs those everyday things like a warm meal, knowing where they're going home to, knowing where they're going to sleep tonight, and the ability to just be a child and play.
Abir says nothing is more rewarding.
It's an extraordinary achievement when you feel you've done the achievement in someone's life, you put a smile on a child's face.
And in a post-pandemic world, that will become more important than ever. Catalina Flores, SBS World News.
At least 21 people are feared dead after heavy rains triggered flooding and mudslides in Japan. The southern areas of Kumamoto and Kagoshima are the worst hit. And at a flooded aged care home in Kuma, 14 people are presumed dead. 3 others were found with hypothermia.
A small break in the storm clouds came this morning, allowing rescue teams to access the elderly. But many more remain stuck in thick mud on the banks of the swollen Kuma River. At one point yesterday, rain fell at a rate of 98 millimetres per hour. Japan's meteorological agency saying the region has never seen a downpour of such ferocity.
It wasn't like normal rain. I honestly never imagined it could be so powerful.
The smell of the river and the muddy water was intense. I could feel the vibrations from the churning water through the road next to the riverbank.
Mudslides destroyed homes and at least 7 people are dead. More missing, some feared buried. At a nursing home, 14 people were found without vital signs, but a doctor is yet to officially confirm their deaths. 2 rivers broke their banks in a dozen locations. The raging waters taking out this bridge. And it's not over yet, the Prime Minister with this warning.
People are required to stay on maximum alert. In regards to Defence Forces, please prepare 10,000 personnel for emergency support.
The rain is expected to continue until Wednesday with flood and strong wind warnings in place. 200,000 people have been asked to evacuate, but many here won't due to fears of catching the coronavirus. Lucy Murray, SBS World News.
Torrential rains continue to batter large parts of China, causing severe floodings in both urban and rural areas. Weeks of abnormally intense rains have left at least 106 people dead or missing. Unusually intense rainfall has swept away buildings in southern parts of the country, affecting about 15 million residents. In Hubei province, waist-high waters forced mass evacuations, while downpours are being blamed for a landslide outside a city in Sichuan province. The Philippines has imposed 48-hour lockdowns in parts of the capital to try to deal with a surge of new coronavirus cases. They're the most severe restrictions since measures started easing several weeks ago.
This is what a total lockdown looks like in one of Manila's busy areas. More than 7,000 people in this community have been ordered to stay at home for 48 hours. More than 30 villages across Manila were told days ago that they wouldn't be allowed to leave their homes starting on Saturday unless it's an emergency. In smaller alleys like this one, residents say they are finding different ways to cope. But for Marilu Castro, this 48-hour total lockdown makes no difference to her family. She says they've been under quarantine for months.
We couldn't earn enough, so we had to open a small store just to sell to neighbors. Thankfully, we do get to receive some aid like food and sometimes cash from the local government. But I hope this situation doesn't last long.
But many businesses here remain closed, which means thousands are unable to earn a living and are dependent on aid. The Philippines implemented one of the world's longest and strictest quarantine. That's more than 50 million people forced to stay at home in the entire region of Luzon for almost 3 months. But coronavirus cases continue to go up over the last few weeks, forcing cities like Manila to implement its own mass testing program. Officials say the lockdown is meant not just as a restriction of movement, but also to conduct rapid tests and immediately isolate those who have tested positive.
March 15, the first day of the lockdown, until mid of April, it's hard because of the resistance of the people. The people don't have enough money and jobs to sustain their livelihood. Slowly, and now they're used to it.
More than 300 people were tested on this day. The Philippines still has one of the highest growing cases in Southeast Asia, but the government has been under intense pressure to reopen the economy, which is now officially under recession. Many other provinces have eased quarantine restrictions, but in Manila, the situation remains uncertain. The rapid test results came back. No one tested positive. And although residents here are grateful, they say they feel as though their lives remain suspended. They pray for better days ahead.
Let's keep moving is the slogan New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is taking to the election. The Labor Party leader today rallied support at a party convention in Wellington as polls predict she'll win a second term. She's been criticised in recent weeks, however, for virus cases related to quarantine blunders. Coming up, Serenading the Skies, a Chinese orchestra marks its return to performance with a spectacular concert. Also, 2 players sent off in a wild finish to this afternoon's NRL game.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute finance thanks to Western Union. Easy international money transfers. Tonight at 7:30, those pharaohs sure knew how to build firewalls. Unlock some Egyptian secrets in decoding the Great Pyramids. Then at 8:30, Joanna Lumley, The Quest for Noah's Ark, followed by grand tours of Scotland's locks.
Tuesday, on Where Are You Really From? That's it.
Živio 100 godina.
Wollongong, and the Serbian story of a steel city.
We are about over 10,000 Serbian people in Wollongong.
It's really like a little oasis of our culture within this mainstream culture.
Do you feel like that conflict is still raw in the community here?
We didn't watch a movie, we had a war.
Where Are You Really From? Tuesday on SBS and on demand.
We complete 25 money transfers every second around the world. Send money from our app, website, or in store. Simple, easy and convenient. Choose the trusted network for your money transfers. Choose Western Union. Download the Western Union app today.
It's laundry season at Harvey Norman. Wash smarter with the latest technology from all the leading brands. Save up to $1,200 on selected AEG packages or up to $600 on selected ASCO laundry packages. We have dryers in stock from $369. Front-load washers with steam to sanitize and care for your delicate items from $698. King-size washers to save you time from $899. Shop in store and online. Limited time now at Harvey Norman.
Since we took over the farm, we've had 3 best-in shows, 5 utes, hundreds of chooks, but only one insurance agent.
Customers stick with Elders Insurance because, like you, they value local service. Elders Insurance, our way never gets old.
More than ever, it's important to keep up with the world's headlines. And as news gets better here, you can send money to your loved ones when they need it most, leaving you to get the whole story. Western Union, easy international money transfers.
Sleep by Max Richter. The ultimate relaxation album for a modern world. Out now.
They wanted to wipe us from the face of the earth. We kept asking ourselves, why?
War of the Worlds starts Thursday 8:30 on SBS and on demand.
Tens of thousands of viewers have been treated to a spectacular online concert performed on one of China's 5 sacred mountains. The concert on the Sea of Cloud featured 120 musicians from the Shan Symphony Orchestra performing on a peak more than 2,000 metres above sea level, delivering a variety of renowned music from artists including Beethoven and classical Chinese pianist Tan Dun. The concert marked the orchestra's return to performance amid eased coronavirus restrictions. Well, time now for the Day in Sport with Michael Tomalaris. And Tomo, Collingwood to investigate allegations of racism at the club.
Janice, good evening to you. That's exactly right. Collingwood has initiated an independent review into accounts of racism made by former player Heritia Lumumba. The review will examine the club's environment between 2005 and 2014, when Lumumba played for the Magpies. Lumumba claims he was nicknamed Chimp during his time as a Collingwood player. The review will be headed by distinguished Professor Larissa Berrant. On the field, the Western Bulldogs in Brisbane coasted to wins last night. This afternoon, Fremantle continued Adelaide's winless start to the season, while Richmond bounced back to form, defeating Melbourne. The win came at a cost for the Tigers, with Dion Prestia suffering a suspected serious knee injury. The defending premiers will now temporarily relocate to the Gold Coast. Captain Trent Cotchin revealing a number of senior players won't join the team in the Queensland hub. The Brisbane Broncos insist coach Anthony Seibold won't be sacked despite the NRL club suffering 6 straight defeats since the competition resumed. At the other end of the ladder, Penrith moved into second with a win over the West's Tigers. The Knights overcame the Sea Eagles to climb into the top 4. Manly was left fuming after being denied a chance to level the scores after the full-time siren. Jake Trebojevic and Aidan Whenua-Blake were both sent off for dissent after the bunker decided not to award the home side a penalty. Socceroos midfielder Aaron Moy has helped Brighton take another major step towards survival in the English Premier League. The Seagulls defeated Norwich, while Chelsea, Leicester and Manchester United secured crucial victories in the battle for a top 4 spot. At Carrow Road, Moy set up Leandro Trossard for the game's only goal. The win moves Brighton 9 points clear of the relegation zone with 5 matches to play this season.
We have to keep trying to get as many points as possible until it's actually done, and it's mathematically impossible. Then we have to keep working.
Chelsea moved back into 4th spot with a resounding win over relegation threatened Watford. Manchester United sit just 2 points behind the Blues. Teenager Mason Greenwood scored a double in the Red Devils' thumping of Bournemouth, while Wolverhampton's top 4 hopes suffered a setback, defeated at home by Arsenal. Well, it's an all-Mercedes front row for the first race of the Formula One season. Valtteri Bottas will start ahead of teammate and defending champion Lewis Hamilton in tomorrow morning's Austrian Grand Prix. Aussie Daniel Ricciardo will start from 10th on the grid. And Janice, we're live at 10:30 with our retro look at the Tour de France. We should have been on it this time, but we're not there. And we're going back to 2009. Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador at 10:30 tonight.
Oh, that's going to be a cracking episode tonight. Thanks so much, Tomo. We'll see you later on. Well, coming up, the weather details and West in the West Wing. Or perhaps Kanye's ambitious plans for the White House.
For 1 hour, you'll forget all about COVID-19. On a very special insight.
How are you going?
Strangers who became neighbours.
I probably wasn't that friendly.
If Kathy shakes her head anymore, I think she might sprain something.
And developed everlasting bonds.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Inside, Tuesday 8:30 on SBS and on demand. And just wait until you meet Malcolm.
I give them a few free vegetables and we have a bit of a yak.
At GIO, we know that when it comes to insurance, everyone loves to save. And now you can receive 12 months free roadside assistance when you take out a new GIO comprehensive car insurance policy. Oh dear, well, that's not good. Ah, that's better. 12 months free roadside assistance. It's just one of the many ways you can save with GIO. Call 13 10 10 today. You know with GIO.
The New South Wales Government is committed to helping businesses create COVID-safe workplaces with information including a COVID safety plan. For free personalised support, visit the New South Wales Government website.
Get gut fit with Australia's #1 voted digestive health product for 2020, Nutrilife Gut Relief from Chemist Warehouse. The combination of prebiotics, digestive herbs and gut-loving nutrients may help relieve constipation and indigestion. Right now at Chemist Warehouse, Nutrilife Gut Relief Powder 180 grams is $25.99. So get gut fit with Nutrilife Gut Relief. Live, look, feel well at Chemist Warehouse.
Give in to fresh. Give in to Subway.
New challenges, new jobs. Wherever you go in life, Host Plus is the industry super fund that goes with you. The fund that puts members first, every day. Host Plus. Wherever life takes you, we go with you.
Getting a new fridge home isn't a big deal.
If you get this big deal from Binglee,
spend $700 or more on a selected fridge at Binglee and we'll deliver it, unpack it and take away your old fridge free.
There was a time you looked at the stars and dreamed of what might be. Childish dreams, Captain. I'll show you my true nature. Our nature.
Lock and lock. Star Trek Sundays starts with the motion picture tonight 8:30 on SBS Viceland.
There's a world of stories available for free at SBS On Demand. Download the app or visit the website today. SBS On Demand, a world of difference.
To the weather details, but first to Russia, where devastating springtime wildfires continue to rage amid record-breaking temperatures. Firefighting planes are the only means of tackling blazes that have spread to 3 million hectares across remote regions of Siberia. The fires sparked by a severe heatwave with temperatures as high as 38 degrees being recorded in some towns. To the forecast, and a low with an associated front is producing showers and storms over southwestern Western Australia. A trough in the southeast is delivering the odd shower with gusty southwesterly winds. A broad high is keeping most other parts dry and mostly clear. For the major centres, partly cloudy skies for Brisbane, Canberra and Adelaide, a shower or two for Perth and Melbourne, heavier downpours in Hobart, should be all clear in Darwin and Sydney. Further afield now, some showers for Wellington and Christchurch, grey in Noumea, fine in Nundy. To Southeast Asia, thunderstorms for Bangkok and Singapore, grey skies for Denpasar, showers in Port Moresby and Honiara. Further north, rain for Manila, cloudy in Beijing and Taipei, drizzle in Tokyo, fine in Hong Kong. Heading west, fine in Jerusalem, cloudy in Tehran, drizzle for Delhi, showers in Islamabad. To Europe now, all clear for Athens, showers in Rome and Stockholm, partly cloudy skies in London and Moscow. To Africa, showers in Addis Ababa, grey skies for Dakar, all clear in Cairo and Johannesburg. To South America, rain for Asunción, cloudy in Buenos Aires, drizzle in Panama City, clear in Rio. And for North America, thunderstorms for New York and partly cloudy in Vancouver, showers in Mexico City. American rap artist and producer Kanye West has made a shock bid for the White House.
You know, they tried to scare me to not wear this hat, my own friends, but this hat, it gives me power in a way.
The musician has previously hinted at a tilt towards politics and has now tweeted his intention to run for the presidency. His and his reality star wife, Kim Kardashian, have appeared separately with incumbent President Donald Trump, advocating for social issues, including prison reform. Kanye West has not been endorsed for either the Democrat or Republican parties. He still has time to file as an independent candidate with electoral authorities in most states. That is the world this Sunday. If you've missed any of tonight's bulletin, you can always catch up on the SBS News website shortly. A reminder, you can also watch the bulletin live there or on our app. From the team, good night.
The ancient Egyptians left an indelible mark on human civilization.
building awe-inspiring monuments, temples, and tombs, demonstrating remarkably precise engineering, all to honor their pharaohs as living gods. Many were crowning achievements of the Old Kingdom. The first great flowering of Egyptian art that began 4,500 years ago. The pyramids of Giza stand as enduring and mysterious relics. Massive structures raised to ensure the afterlives of three all-powerful pharaohs, Menkaure, Khafre, and Khufu. The pharaoh who built the oldest and the biggest pyramid of all, the Great Pyramid. The last surviving wonder of the ancient world.
The Great Pyramid is a testament to ancient Egyptians' ingenuity, acumen, and technical and scientific prowess.
The Great Pyramid is absolutely elegant and marvelous, even by standards today.
How did the Egyptians engineer this enormous monument with such extreme precision, using only the most basic of tools and brute human power? Who were the thousands of laborers who toiled for decades on this massive project? And how did building the Great Pyramid transform ancient Egypt? Now, after decades of intense research, experts have uncovered a wealth of new evidence about the construction of the Great Pyramid.
From archaeology, from ancient texts, and even from understanding the engineering of the pyramid, the people of the pyramid are coming back to life for us.
When it comes to telling the story of the pyramids, it's never been easy to separate fact from fantasy. The silent enigma of the pyramids can be like a blank canvas, ready to accept the latest outlandish theory about its builders. Such theories drew a young would-be archaeologist to Egypt in the 1970s.
I came with so-called New Age ideas about the pyramids, believing that they had something to say about the lost continent of Atlantis and so on. And when I encountered bedrock reality at the Giza Plateau, it didn't add up to those ideas.
Now, after 4 decades of investigation, Mark Lehner has become one of the world's leading authorities on the Giza pyramids. His work has focused on illuminating the lives of the workers. From sifting through an ancient garbage dump to excavating a highly ordered city that housed the laborers. He's found evidence of a massive effort that transformed the Old Kingdom.
I think not about how the Egyptians built the pyramid. I think more about how the pyramids built Egypt.
The pharaoh Khufu ordered the construction of this engineering marvel as a monument and tomb for all eternity. And yet we know very little about the man himself.
This tiny statue is the image of the man who made one of the largest buildings in the ancient world. It's extraordinary that someone who has left us the Great Pyramid, which is still standing nearly 5,000 years after it was built, we still don't have that much of the man himself.
For thousands of years, the only record of how Khufu built the pyramid came from the world's first historian, Herodotus, who wrote a history of Egypt in around 450 BC.